Hey guys, I am so excited to see you all. I'm so excited to share my shooting process with you. Thank you so much for joining. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask about a couple things first. Can everybody hear me? Because I've done this before and sometimes the audio doesn't work at first, so I just want to make sure. There's a chat box, so feel free to pop in the chat and just confirm and let me know. Okay, thanks Camilla, thanks Masha, thanks guys. So just glad to know this is working well. Also, sometimes there's a little bit of stuttering with playback. So if at any point during there's like a long period of silence or I'm talking about something that isn't matching the visual on the screen, that's what you're seeing. There's a little button at the top of your screen that just says reconnect. So if any point that happens, just hit reconnect and that usually can resync you with if there's ever any buffering or any sort of a lag or any. And then one more thing, if as we're going through the webinar, you're really enjoying it, if anything you're really jamming on, I would love for you to just snap a picture and throw it up in your stories. And if you tag me, then I'll repost on my Instagram stories as well, because I love to see what parts you guys and I'm going to show you how I shoot, but through a slideshow, because I feel like that's going to be more interactive for you guys, so you can see examples of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go away for a second, but I'll still be here. You'll hear me. You just won't see me. And then I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see the presentation. Okay, so I'm turning my webcam off and I'm going to turn screen share on. Okay, cool. So I know this looks crazy for a second, but I'm just moving it off to the side now. And then, yeah, so, oh my gosh, you guys are joining from so many different places. That is amazing. If anyone's having difficulty hearing, some people are saying yes, some people are having some troubles. Just make sure that your volume's up all the way. Maybe try using headphones because I think it should be working. Okay, cool. So, and again, if you are having a hard time at any point or you feel like there's a lag, just go ahead and hit that reconnect button at the top of your screen, and that should help refresh so you're connected, and you'll see everything. Okay, cool, great. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. So today I'm going to teach you guys all about how I shoot from start to finish. And I want to show you several parts of how I'm shooting my process. I do a lot of planning. First of all, I'm definitely a super organized person, definitely a planner. So I'm going to show you my planning process. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about inspiration, which I think is really hugely important. Figuring out the sources that I use to kind of come up with ideas for beautiful images, staging shoots. You'll learn a little bit about my styling process. So some of the tried and true tips and tools that I use for creating a really visually interesting frame. And I'm also going to share with you guys my shooting process. So some of the equipment that I use to photograph my subjects, and also techniques as far as like camera angles, how I go about choosing that. Basically how I go about photographing to try to capture that subject in the most flattering and beautiful way. So after that, we'll dive into the editing process. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my standard process that I go through for when I'm editing my images and how I try to make that as efficient as possible, but also as beautiful as possible as well. So let's go ahead to the next slide. First, I just want to check, is everyone, okay, cool. When I went full screen, I just want to make sure that everyone could see. So I'm just checking the chat box again. All right, cool. So I'm going to go full screen again. All right. So next, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my sources of inspiration. So for me, if you guys follow me on Instagram and on my blog, you know that nature and the seasons are a huge part of how I go about drawing inspiration for my shoots. I love shooting outdoors. I love using natural things in my styling and as my subjects, of course. So I also recommend everyone else using that too, because I think that the seasons are such a beautiful, rich source of beauty and color and texture, and just overall visual style. So if I'm feeling stuck, I'll usually just go on a walk and I start looking at the plants or the fruit or the vegetables that are growing, or even just little animals scurrying around. And I kind of get ideas for shoots, for locations, for colors, all sorts of things. So like I wrote here, even the way the color of a flower catches the light, that can spark a really beautiful and wonderful idea. So my second source of inspiration is just looking at other artwork. So looking at other artists and other forms of art is hugely inspirational. You can go the more traditional route and to help you spark creativity in terms of color or light ideas. As you guys know, for my photography, it's mostly pretty dark and moody. So kind of like that moody Dutch old world Renaissance type painting. Those are hugely inspirational for me as well. Other art forms like ceramics, interior design, landscape design, fashion, those are all amazing sources for creative textures, colors, settings, and just really interesting ways to tell your visual story. So I'm always looking towards other art forms in terms of inspiring me and giving me ideas for ways to express myself visually. And then, as you guys know, Pinterest is definitely an inspo goldmine. So there is so much inspiration on Pinterest. I love using it to brainstorm ideas for shooting angles, storytelling, color combinations, lighting, texture, plating ideas, all that jazz. It's just hugely inspirational. There's such a rich wealth of beautiful imagery there. It's an incredible resource when you're trying to brainstorm ideas for a shoot. There's this really good book that I love called Steal Like an Artist. And in it, this guy talks about, I think his name is Andrew McKeon. He talks about how a good artist never copies someone's work and recreates the exact same thing. Instead, what they do is they draw inspiration from a multitude of other artists, and then they create something completely new. And I think that's so true, especially, you know, when you're looking at a place like Pinterest, where there's a lot of art out there and a lot of existing imagery that people have created. It's really important to try, obviously, not to copy stuff verbatim, but to instead look at all the rich beauty in each of these images and ask yourself, you know, why are you drawn to that? Is it the texture? Is it the color? Oh, you know, I really love the light in this. And then draw from a bunch of different sources and use all that inspiration to create something that's uniquely you and has your unique voice attached to it. So I personally have several private boards just for myself. And so I will be pinning things that I just find visually interesting to those boards. And it's not just food, you know, it's a huge range of stuff. It could be like an old photo, could be a really cool designed bedroom, it could be clothes, a really beautiful garden, just things that I find really visually inspiring. So I like to go look at those boards when I'm feeling a little bit stuck or a little bit uninspired, and that really helps me get my creative juices flowing. And so next, before we hop, oh, great. Oh, thanks, Caitlin. So Caitlin actually linked to his book and his website. That is awesome. And yeah, so I'm just going to say it one more time. If anyone's having any trouble with audio or lagging, just go ahead and click on that reconnect button at the top of your screen, and that should kind of help resync you with the webinar. All right, cool. So let's dive back into it. So next I want to talk a little bit about my planning process. Um, so I'm a huge planner. Before I go into a shoot, I'm already going to start mentally storyboarding what I plan on shooting. Now, I'm not as organized as some people who actually do physical storyboards and like draw little sketches of the ideas that they want to shoot. First of all, I'm terrible at drawing, so that wouldn't work for me at all, unless it was just like stick figures. But I do start mentally kind of picturing what is it that I want to shoot. I start thinking about the camera angles, and with the subject in mind, I'm going to think about what camera angles are going to be most flattering for that particular subject. I'm going to also think about any big props that I'm going to need. So if I know like, hey, I'm going to shoot this rustic pie and I think it'll look really cool if I do it on my big wooden tabletop with a chair pulled out, I'll start thinking about like, do I have the chair that I need? Do I need to go get a new chair? Is my shooting surface going to work properly? I'm going to think about lighting as well, and just overall other big picture type stuff. So not necessarily specific things like, oh, this is like the small little spoon that I'm going to place, next to the plate. Like that stuff that I kind of decide as I'm styling, but just kind of big picture stuff so that I have a broad mental image in my mind of exactly what it is that I'm working towards, that I'm trying to create. Now, that's just when I'm shooting for me personally. So if it's a shoot for a client and it's a larger shoot, more in depth, sometimes I'll actually create a Pinterest board as well. And so I'll start pinning images to that board that are kind of in the same vein or style as the shoot that I have in my mind. So that way when I'm on set, I can really hone in on that specific style. And it's helpful too, if you have a client that you're working with and they haven't sent you a creative brief, they're just kind of trying to explain to you what they want. A lot of people have a hard time explaining what they want something to look like creatively. Even if they're in the creative field, it can be really hard to just like describe something instead of showing something, because I feel like we're all in this creative industry, right? So we're used to seeing things. We're really visual people. So if you ever have a client that you're like, I'm not totally sure exactly what it is that they want style-wise, either have them put together a Pinterest board for you, or you put together a Pinterest board and just show it to them and be like, hey, based on what you told me, this is what I thought would work really well for the shoot. Can you just confirm like this is visually, on brand with what you were thinking? And that way, before you start shooting stuff, you just know that you're all on the same page. So that saves you a lot of time. So next, in terms of planning, I start thinking a lot about the color of the subject and what other colors would best complement or enhance it. Color is the number one deciding factor on the shooting surface that I use and pretty much all the other props that go into the shoot. I always want to think about what color the subject is and to not overwhelm that color with anything else in frame that's too saturated or the exact same hue and saturation. I always want the subject to be the star, of every photo. So I try to choose shooting surface whose color and texture is going to complement the subject and enhance it rather than distract from it. Because the last thing you want when someone looks at a photo is for them to look at the shooting surface first rather than the subject that you're trying to portray and focus in on in frame. So I have some examples here. This is this golden saffron starbread that I made, and it's super gold hued and the shooting surface is very blue, and so that was a very purposeful choice because gold and blue are contrasting colors, right? So when you put something gold on top of something really blue, it makes the gold thing pop. So by choosing the dark blue shooting surface, knowing that I had a very golden dish that I was shooting, it really makes that subject pop against the blue background. And then here is something very similar with this purple sweet potato cheesecake. So purple and green, very contrasting colors. So when I was picking my shooting surface, I picked my very dark muted green one. And then the purple just super pops around it. And then you have all these little green touches of props too. So for the linen, I use dark green, and then you can see the tulips have green, and even the pistachio garnish on top is also green. So you get all these nice contrasting colors that are really, really making the subject almost leap out of frame. And so sometimes with some subjects, like this cheesecake, it's kind of busy on top, right? So there's a little bit of a swirling pattern going on, and then you have all these different textures and shapes of the berries that are the garnish on top. If you ever have a subject like that that's just really busy, it can be really helpful to keep everything else in frame a little bit more neutral and plain. So you can see here the shooting surface is just like a neutral gray wood. There's not a lot of other props in frames, just like a little neutral gray, dark gray linen. And that really helps you go immediately to the subject, which is already kind of busy. Whereas if I just had crammed so much other stuff in frame, it would be a little bit distracting and also a little bit overwhelming to look at from a viewing perspective. So yeah, if you ever have a subject that's patterned or already a little bit busy with a ton of different texture or shape or color, maybe it's a good idea to step back a little on the styling and keep things more simple. About planning. The next step after I start thinking about color, I'll start thinking about the props and ingredients that I want to get. So knowing what my subject is, I start to list out everything that I need to go purchase. So if it's a food shoot, I'm going to start listing out all the ingredients that I need that I might not already have. I'm also going to start listing out props that I don't have, but I think would be a really good fit for the shoot. At this point, I have a really large prop collection, so I don't really go out and source props that often anymore because I have a ton out in my garage. But if there is something that I don't have, that I know I'll need, something really specialized, you know, like a ravioli cutter or something like that, then I'll go ahead and start like thinking about, okay, I need to order it by such and such date so that it arrives by such and such date, and just making sure I have everything I need by the time I shoot. When it comes to fresh fruit or produce ingredients, if you're shooting food, I highly recommend getting twice as much as you actually need for the recipe. And that's because you'll be able to use them for styling the finished dish and garnishing and things like that. When you use the raw ingredients that go into a dish as a styling tool, it looks really lovely, and it also tells someone right away when they look at the photo what is inside. So they're not like, this is just a pie. They can look at it, and if it's just a covered pie but it's surrounded by apples, then they know, oh, this is an apple pie, or oh, it's a cherry pie if there's cherries all around. So that's why I really recommend stocking up and getting a little bit extra of the produce. And then anything that involves a trip to the store or trip to the market, that goes right in my Google Calendar. And I usually schedule it for a day or two before the shoot so that everything is really nice and fresh looking too. Because the last thing you want is, sad, limp, wrinkly carrot tops or sad lettuce. You want everything to look really fresh and bright. And Google Calendar, I'm a big proponent of Google Calendar. I love it. I use it to schedule everything. Super useful for shoots. So if you're looking for a way to get a little bit more organized, definitely recommend looking at Google Calendar because it syncs up to your phone, your computer, everything. Super useful. All right, so I also want to talk a little bit about timing. So when you are trying to schedule when you're going to shoot, it's very important to think about the time of day that's going to be best for your shoot as well. So for outdoor scenic shots, they're typically really lovely around dusk or dawn, so try to schedule it accordingly. So for this photo, for example, we were camping out at our homestead property, and we wanted to take some photos, so I waited till sunset, and that's when I took most of the photos that I did that day because the light was just so soft and beautiful and natural. So if you're planning an outdoor shoot, try to keep that in mind. When's the light going to be most flattering, and try to schedule your shoot around that. If you're shooting near a south-facing window in the summer, then you'll need to make sure you have your diffusion screen with you to help soften the harsh sunlight, because it's going to be pretty direct and pretty intense. So just, thinking about light, thinking about timing, try to schedule out your shoots accordingly. Now, if the shoot involves cooking, you also want to think about what you can prep ahead of time the day before to help speed up the cooking process. So that way, this happens a lot in the winter where you just have really short days and maybe something took longer to cook than you thought. And now you're like, oh shoot, I only have half an hour to shoot this before the sun goes down. On the days like that, it really helps to try to think about, okay, what can I prep ahead of time? Should I chop the celery the day before and pop it in the fridge so that way I don't have to do that the day of? Things like that are super helpful. And then you also want to think about if there's any ingredients that need to be left out at room temperature the night before. So if you're making a cake, a lot of times you have to cream butter with sugar. So the butter needs to be at room temperature. Or if you're making a cheesecake, the cream cheese needs to be at room temp. So just thinking about stuff like that. And just emphasizing how important timing is. If you're shooting food that doesn't look fresh for very long, you really need to schedule it out so that as soon as the dish is done, you can place it on your surface and shoot it immediately. So basically what this means is you need to style the whole scene. You need to position your camera. You need to make sure it has the right lens on it, and that everything's good to go before you even start cooking. Because with those sensitive types of dishes, you really have to be ready to go as soon as the dish is done. So for example, with this shot, it's a dripping shot, right? So there's stuff dripping off the side of this mug. So I had positioned my camera on my tripod. I'd done test shots with the tray, with myself in frame holding an empty tray, made sure I had the right lens on it for the shot, marked where I needed to stand. And then as soon as I garnished those, I put them on the tray and then I jumped right in front of camera. So you want to kind of think about that kind of stuff too, if it's a very sensitive dish. So a lot of times I'll just style the whole scene for an ingredient or in process shot. And that way, once the dish is finished cooking, the styling's pretty much mostly already done. And I can just quickly pop it in frame and shoot it while it's still really glistening and fresh. All right, so before we talk about styling, I just want to check in. Okay, cool. So some people are able to hear and some people are not. But if you are not, there's definitely going to be a replay link sent out right after this is done. So if you watch the replay, that should be totally good and you'll be able to hear everything. Okay, cool. So I'm going to dive back in. All right, so with styling, like I was talking about with color, it is probably the biggest aspect of how I go about approaching styling my dishes. So I choose props that are going to highlight the color of the dish. And I usually go about this one of three ways. I'll do contrasting colors, like I was talking about before, where you pick a color like blue and gold, where it's going to make each of those colors really pop against the other. I'll also use monochromatic colors, which is basically where you use a really similar color throughout the whole shoot, which can look really interesting. So if I was shooting grapefruit tarts and I was using soft pink linens and a soft pink surface, so just using the same color but different shades and intensities of that color throughout. Or I'll do muted colors except the subject. So kind of like I was talking about with the very last photo that I showed you in that series of 3 with the strawberry cheesecake. And now this is that same strawberry cheesecake here, but you can see this is styled very differently, right? So this one is more the contrasting color scheme where you have green and red. So green and red, again, super contrasty, so you can see it really pops against the green. So there's just so many ways to style things and emphasize colors. So I still feel like even though this is a busy surface of the cheesecake, it still works well here because the background isn't too busy. Because even though it is a saturated color, it's mostly blurred out, right? So it's not like you can see every single little leaf. So I think that, again, really helps you focus in on the cheesecake because that's what is in focus. And the rest is kind of a dark blur. And so, yeah, so that is what I just explained. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide. All right, cool. So layering, that's another technique that I love to use when I'm styling. So that's kind of my go-to tool for drawing the viewer's eye towards the subject. So I usually will have several layers placed underneath the subject to help add more texture and dimension to that area of frame and draw the viewer's eye right towards it. So in almost all of my flat lay photos, the location of the subject has more layers than any other place in frame. And so you can see in this photo, I have this one bowl, and then there's a plate under the bowl, and then there's linen under that. So this has 3 different layers, and there's nowhere else in frame that has that many layers of different objects on it. And so because of that, your eye is really immediately drawn down to this part of frame. I love to use fabrics, serving trays, cutting boards, stacked plates, stacked bowls, to create different layers within frame and, again, really draw the viewer's eye towards the subject. This is really helpful too in top-down shots, and also known as flat lay shots, when the whole surface is in focus. So you can't try using like a soft, shallow focus, right? When you're shooting from the side, if there's only one little part of the frame in focus, obviously the viewer's eye is going to go right to that part. But with a flat light, everything is in sharp focus most of the time. So using layering as a tool to really help guide the viewer's eye as to, like, hey, look over here, there's a bunch of stuff like stacked on top of each other. It kind of, it acts as like a target that just draws the viewer's eye right in. So it's a really awesome tool in terms of drawing the viewer to a specific part of frame. And so I have some example images here. So you can see there's some layering going on the left-hand side with the fabric and then the tart. And then on the right-hand side, there's a serving tray, linen, and then the subject as well. And so one more thing about styling, you also want to choose props that have a purpose, right? So you should think about items that will actually be used in the process. So if I'm shooting a seed starting guide, which is what this photo was about, it would make sense to have like plant name markers, ceramic planters, maybe a little gardening shovel, some dirt, some seeds scattered in frame, and some real plants. If I was shooting a recipe for a lemon cake, it would make sense to have like the rinds of juiced lemons, bold lemon juice, citrus reamer, glass jars filled with like sugar or flour. You really want to think about what you'd actually use to create that final product, and use that to tell the story of the image through the styling. And so, oops, that's the one we already saw. There we go. So here's a couple more examples. So you can see in this image, I'm making a ton of juice. So I just have like a bunch of oranges, and there is honey that goes into it. So I have honey there, some juice, peeling the fruit. And then here, this is a recipe for some pesto that had lemon juice in it as well, and zucchini. So you can see there's all the ingredients there and actual tools that I would have used to make it. And I also wanted to mention a little bit about plating. So when you're photographing food, you also really want to think about how you're going to plate the food. So this includes thinking about how you're going to cook the food in a way that will make it look the most visually appealing. So for cooked food, this usually means cooking it in a way that makes it look really golden and really like caramelized looking. And that's something that I recommend doing, even if it means that you're slightly over or under cooking it in reality. So with pork chops, for example, they're done when they're at like 145 degrees internally, Fahrenheit internal temperature. But sometimes if they are still kind of like white looking on the outside, then I'll just turn up my cast iron skillet and quickly sear them a little bit just to get a little golden hue, because otherwise they just look kind of gray and sad and not very delicious looking. So you kind of always want to think about that as well. And then, as you're shooting stuff, a lot of times if it's supposed to be hot, as it cools, it kind of stops being all glistening and beautiful. So I usually have some extra olive oil and a pastry brush on hand, and I'll brush it with that as I'm shooting to keep it kind of glistening and fresh looking. And when you're plating stuff, I always recommend trying to plate it in a really visually interesting way. So sometimes, doing stuff off center is a little bit better than putting it in the middle of the plate, or instead of sprinkling the garnish evenly across the top, like in this photo, I did the garnish kind of hugging the sides of each of these tarts, and it ended up looking really neat. All right, so let's talk a little bit about shooting. So these are some of my go-to tools. I use a C-stand for pretty much all of my top-down shots now, and I use a tripod for all the shots that have myself in frame, like when I'm standing in frame and, sprinkling or holding something. And if I'm not in frame and it's not a top-down shot, then I've shot it handheld. I really love the mobility that comes from shooting handheld, and that's typically how I shoot the majority of the time, except for top-down shots or if I'm in frame. Camera-wise, I shoot with the Canon 5D Mark IV, and I really love the Wi-Fi capability that camera has, because it allows me to shoot remotely from my phone, which is very useful when my camera is up on the C-stand and I can't see what the camera is seeing. I can use the Canon Connect app on my iPhone and actually see what the camera is seeing and trigger the shutter release remotely that way, which is really nice. And then for my lenses, I really love shooting with my 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8, my 85 millimeter 1.2, my 50 millimeter 1.2, and my 35 millimeter 1.4. So in terms of capturing motion, there's a little bit of a secret that I love to use and that I recommend that I'm going to share with you guys. So whenever there's a shot of me in frame and there's some sort of motion happening, I use something called an interval timer to take the photo. So this basically means that you program the camera to take photos at certain intervals. So I'll set up my camera to take a photo every 1 second while I go through the motion. So that way I have a really good chance of capturing the motion in a really visually interesting way. So I'll set up my camera, it's taking a photo every second, and I'm just sprinkling continuously for like a good 10 seconds. And then I go back to my camera and I look through the 10 shots that it took and the 10 seconds I was sprinkling. And chances are one of those is actually going to be a really cool capture of the motion. And some cameras let you do this within the actual camera menu, like the Mark IV, but some don't. And with the ones that don't, you can actually order a special interval timer remote on Amazon. And I go through setting up and shooting with both of those options in my online course. And then when it comes to shooting, it's also, of course, really important to think about the angle and choosing the angle in a way that's going to really flatter the subject and make it look really amazing. So some subjects that are flatter, like soup is pretty flat, or a folded shirt, they don't really look great shot from the side because they have no vertical height. So I shoot a lot more images of those type of subjects as a top down, also known as like a flat lay, because it lets you see the subject more clearly, because there's just not a lot of vertical dimension to them. So it's better to shoot them just as a straight top down. However, if your subject has a lot of height, so something like a layer cake, or if it involves some sort of action like sprinkling or pouring, it makes a lot more sense to shoot subjects like that from the side, because you're going to see the whole subject and you're going to see the action as well. So like in this image, it would have looked way less visually interesting if I had shot this as a top down while the pouring was happening, than shooting it from the side, because here from the side you get to see the whole action and the drizzling, and it's just a lot more visually interesting. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about when to use which lens. the angle I shoot from also really influences the lens that I use. So I always use my 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8 zoom lens for all of my top-down shots. And so you can see I have my camera set up in this photo on this big silver thing. So that is a C-stand. And so when I have my camera set up on this, I'm always shooting with my 24-70 zoom. And that's because I like being able to just really quickly and easily zoom in and out of frame to adjust it and make the subject appear closer or farther than having to move the arm of my whole C-stand up and down. So it's just a lot easier to zoom in and out to adjust frame. However, when I'm shooting from the side, I use my 85 millimeter 1.2 for about 80% of the images that I'm shooting from the side. It's my favorite lens, and it makes for the most beautiful telephoto shots that are like slightly close up, a little bit out of focus, but the area that is in focus is very sharp. It's just a really beautiful, incredible lens, and it's definitely my favorite of all the lenses that I have. And everything I'm mentioning here, like the focal length, the minimum aperture number that's after it, shooting with the interval timer, I go super into depth into all these things in my updated online course. So it's all about photography, styling, and branding. Before I dive into my editing process, I want to share a little bit about this new course that I'm launching with you guys, because I'm really excited about it, and it's just such an incredible resource for photographers and such a wealth of information. So in the course, there's over 5 hours of hands-on video tutorials where I'm going to teach you everything about each of these subjects. So I want to explain a little bit more about just what's in the course. So it starts with lesson 1, which is just about getting to know your camera. So in it, we'll go over camera settings. I'm going to talk a little bit about shooting in live view, which is one of my favorite modes to shoot in. Focus, both auto and manual. There's so many amazing autofocus points on DSLR cameras now. So just kind of talking about how to use those and best practices. And then we'll talk about your shooting mode dial and also exposure and how to get a proper exposure, what that means. And I'll also dive into setting up to photograph yourself in frame, which is super fun to play around with. I love doing handheld shots. They just kind of add this wonderful personal feel to images that kind of helps the viewer feel like they're a part of the frame too. And then in lesson 2, we're going to dive into lenses. So I'm going to talk to you about what focal lengths are and what they mean. We'll talk about full frame versus crop frame lenses or cameras, but also lenses, because if you have a full frame or crop frame camera, that's going to influence what lens you get. And they even make lenses now for crop frame lenses or for crop frame cameras. And that's something that I kind of talk a little bit more in depth about why I don't think that's a great idea. But you'll learn all about that. You'll also learn about what focal lengths are most flattering for which camera angles and the differences between zoom, prime, and tilt shift lenses. Well, you'll also learn a bit about working with light. So manipulating natural light. You'll learn about white balance and how to troubleshoot any issues with that. Sometimes in the winter, so there's just not enough I recommend. And I'm going to dive into how to set up and how I usually position it for shoots in this lesson. And you'll also learn all about the recommended equipment that I love and use on a daily basis. And in lesson 4, you're going to learn all about styling and storytelling. So we're going to dive into composition and balance. So I know styling is such a personal thing, but there are definite tools and techniques and strategies that you can put into place to really craft an eye-catching and beautifully composed image. And we're going to dive into all of that in the composition and balance module. And then we will learn all about color theory. So like I was talking about earlier a little bit about using contrasting colors or complementary colors monochromatic color schemes. So we're going to really nerd out hard on color theory and go deep into how you can create really eye-catching images by strategically using and playing around with different colors. After that, we will learn all about props in shooting services and backdrops in Module 3. So there's so many different props that you can use when you're shooting. I'm going to talk a lot about my favorite sources and also best tips for how I go about sourcing props, what you should look for, what you should avoid. Same with shooting services and backdrops. I'm going to share all my sources with you and kind of strategies and techniques for choosing which ones work best for your shoot. And then Module 4, we're going to dive into plating. So kind of like I mentioned earlier with using garnishes, we're going to talk all about that, using techniques like the olive oil to freshen up your food. Basically, we're going to talk about how to make sure that your food looks amazing on the dish. And then the last module of Lesson 4 is storytelling, which I think is more important now than it ever has been before. Being able to tell your story accurately through your image is going to be what draws people to you and what sets you apart. People are looking for more than just a pretty picture. They're looking for a pretty picture that really evokes something and calls to them and brings them in. And so in the storytelling module, you're going to learn all about how to do that and really give a voice that calls out to viewers in your images. Lesson 5, this is all about branding and social media. So creating your own visual brand is a super important part of standing out and sharing your voice and your perspective with your audience and your followers and your potential customers, right? So in Lesson 5, it starts out just going into creating your own visual brand that's going to create your own style and kind of give yourself a branded look. We're also going to go into Instagram, which is like a whole thing. You guys know there's like courses out there just on Instagram, but I'm going to tell you my favorite strategies for Instagram and best practices for the app. We'll also dive into your Pinterest strategy. So 100% honesty here, Pinterest is the #1 source of site traffic for all my websites. It's an incredible tool, and the best part is it's completely free. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what I use to drive traffic to my site through Pinterest. I'm also going to teach you guys a little bit about building your email list. So I'm sure you've heard a million bajillion times by now on the internet that building your email list is really important. So I'm going to talk to you guys about best practices for that, the platform that I like to use for email list building. And then the last module of Lesson 5, we're going to talk about client communication. So client communication is really important in terms of making sure that you're delivering what the client thinks they're getting. And if there's any miscommunication, then that can get really messy and you end up being unhappy and the client ends up being unhappy. And I think when you're freelancing too, it's really important to have repeat clients, right? That's so much easier than trying to find a whole new client, is to just have the same clients over and over. So client communication is key in maintaining that. And that's something that we'll dive into in Lesson 5 as well. Lesson 6 is a really fun lesson as well. So that's all about editing in Lightroom. I'm such a Lightroom nerd. I love this application. It's so amazing, the things that you can do to your images in Lightroom. I did a free Lightroom workshop a couple months ago, and man, it's just the best. So we dive super duper deep into the application in Lesson 6. So Lesson 6 has 3 modules. So I dive into Lightroom Classic CC. So that's like the full-fledged Lightroom that you edit on your desktop. There's a long, in-depth demo on that. I also show you how to use Lightroom Mobile CC. So that's the one that's on your iPhone. And it's really amazing for editing iPhone photos. And also go into Lightroom Desktop CC. And so that's basically like the mobile version, but you can also go into it on desktop. And I like to call it Lightroom Lite. It's like the easy, simple version. But if you're really a professional photographer or you like to have a lot of control, Lightroom Classic is my favorite because it gives you so much minute, detailed control over the image. But I'll go into specifics on like the differences and how to use each one in lesson 6. Lesson 7 is all about creating a cinemagraph. So you guys might have noticed on my Instagram feed, I have those still images that have moving parts in them. They're so easy to make and they're so beautiful. And honestly, they're a huge boon for engagement on Instagram because it's a video and people are just much more drawn to moving image than still images. So I'm going to teach you all about shooting and editing and creating your own cinemagraphs. And then I have some really fun bonuses for you guys too. So the first one is a video tutorial all about shooting tethered. So you'll learn all about shooting tethered with a cable, and also how to shoot tethered via Wi-Fi. So some cameras that are Wi-Fi enabled, you can shoot tethered with Wi-Fi as well. And so there are advantages and disadvantages of each one of these types of tethering, and I'm going to dive into that. But basically, tethering is when you're shooting and what you're shooting on your camera actually starts showing up in your computer in Lightroom on the big screen, so you can really get a good detailed look at your images as you're shooting and catch any errors or weirdness or issues that you might miss if you're just looking through the back of your camera. So shooting tethered is a super useful tool. And then you get another bonus. This is a gear list, so that you know exactly what to get. The worst thing is following along with the tutorial and realizing that you have completely different equipment from the person who is teaching. So with the gear list, that won't happen. You'll know exactly what we're using and we can all be on the same page. I have all my recommended physical gear and equipment, and then also all my recommended digital gear and equipment too. So like the platform that I use to host my email list, all that stuff's going to be in there. And then in bonus number 3, you're going to get my guide to salvage. And it doesn't sound super exciting, but it's so useful. And I get asked about this a lot actually from photographers is, what do? I have all these raw files and they're enormous. How am I supposed to organize these? How do I store them? So I actually have a really amazing system in place that I use for backing up all my files, how I store archive files, and what size hard drives I recommend. This is really great to ensure that you have years of beautiful content to share, and you're not accidentally losing files just because you don't have this really structured and simple and easy system in place. So I'm going to share all about how to stay organized and back up your stuff. And then you'll also get an invitation to the members only Facebook group. So we'll have community support there. There'll just be discussions going on all the time, opportunity for feedback on your images. It's going to be a really awesome place, and you'll get the invite when you sign up. And then I'm also going to be doing 4 1-hour live Q&A sessions in the Facebook group. So once a month starting in June. And there's 2 ways to get your questions answered. You can submit them in advance if you want. And you can also just send them live while I'm doing the Facebook Live. And the lives will always be available for replay. So you can just go back and watch them as many times as you want. And those will happen just in our exclusive Facebook group. So you can see with all the stuff, there is a combined value of $2,385 for all these hours and hours of content, but you guys get it for $497. And if you use the discount code Insider50, you can get it for $50 off. So all that for $447. And I'm not even done yet, actually, because there's even more stuff that you get. So along with all those lessons in video tutorials, you get a workbook of the entire course that has every word that I speak in the video tutorials written down. So you don't have to worry about taking notes. In the workbook, there's also example images of all of these concepts too. So it's not just a bunch of text. You get text, but you also get photos and diagrams. And it's just there to act as kind of like a reference for you to read through the course and have it in multiple forms. And you'll also get assignments for each of the lessons with hands-on exercises that kind of correspond to the content that we're going over in that lesson. So I really think that there's no better way to learn than to practice and kind of sear that information into your brain by physically doing it yourself. So each of these assignments has been specifically created to really help you learn and absorb and soak up that information. So if you guys can see on the right-hand side, there should be a little pop-up with a link to sign up. I did want to mention that there's a bundle option. So what I just explained to you is just the complete normal standard course, which is amazing and a great deal. But there's also a bundle. So if you upgrade to the bundle, you get literally everything that I just talked about. Plus you get my complete permanent Lightroom preset collection, which is over 100 presets. I love using presets to edit in Lightroom. You also get my complete set of email templates for freelancers. So it helps you kind of structure how to reach out to people if you're just blindly reaching out to a new potential client, or if you're following up for payment, if someone's late on paying you. Those kinds of things can be really awkward to like phrase properly. And all of that is in my email template bundle. You also get a client communication checklist. So like I was saying, client communication is hugely important. This is just a checklist to make sure that you guys are always on the same page. I also give you guys my pricing guide so you can help make sure that you are pricing yourself fairly and accordingly, and in a way that you'll still be making money. I also have my media kit templates included, which are super useful. If you're ever starting to collaborate with brands, you definitely need a media kit to showcase you, what you're about. They're a little bit time-consuming to make if you're starting from scratch, but with the templates, it's going to save you so much time, and they look really, really pretty. And then I think one of the coolest parts is you also get my complete video and stop motion course too. So in addition to the photography course and styling and branding course, you get to learn how to make top-down videos and stop motion videos. So there's 8 video tutorial lessons. You get my exclusive video and stop motion ebook. You get a workbook with 8 hands-on exercises for each of the lessons in the course. You get an Adobe Premiere Workspace template. You'll get a shot list template. So when you're putting together a shot list, if you want to make a video, that just makes it so much easier. And all of these things together have a combined value of $803. But with the bundle, you actually only get it for $299. If you want to upgrade, I highly recommend you get an insane amount of stuff. And for that price, that basically means you're getting the entire video course for free. That's all just for free, just for you guys. So I'm going to pop up that offer too, so you guys have it if you want to peek at it. Yeah, and so let's talk about just really quick what happens when you sign up. So if you sign up, you'll be sent a zip file that you'll download, and in the zip file there's going to be welcome instructions with links to the course. You'll get the workbook of the entire course, assignments for each of the course lessons. You'll get a calendar to help you put together a schedule that works for you. The best thing about this course is you have access to it forever, and you can completely do it at your own pace. So if you want to dive right in and go Mad Max on it and just do it all as fast as you can do that. Or if you want to take it slow, you have a full-time job, you just want to kind of slowly learn this on the weekends, that's totally fine too. There's no rush. You also get the go-to gear list will be sent to you as well. And you'll get the bonus guide to backing up and storing your files and an invite to the Facebook community. And then I just wanted to share a really quick testimonial with you guys from Pam Jones. Pam is a sweetheart. She has a bakery called Lemon Tree Cakes, and I'm just going to show you really quickly. These are some of the photos that she took after the course, and they are so beautiful. And she hand paints desserts. So the cookies and the cake, these are all hand painted onto the sweets by Pam. She's an amazing person. And so what she said is, I have followed and admired Eva's work for a while now, always wishing I could be as good a photographer as she is, which is so sweet. Thank you, Pam. That's very kind. And then she said, I finally took the plunge and signed up to her online course, and it's the best investment I have ever made. The course is magic. Eva explains every detail of photography with clear, simple, and detailed instructions. Since taking the course, I can see the improvements in the pictures I'm taking. If you ever want to learn about photography, look no further. This is the only course you will ever need to better your food photography. Eve's not only a brilliant photographer, but a wonderful human being, and that shines through, which is also one of the reasons I'm drawn to her work. Thank you so much. It comes from an authentic place. Thank you, Eva, for giving this newbie the confidence to take not just beautiful pictures, but to also be able to tell a story through it. So that's Pam, who is a delight. I'm going to share one more testimonial from Sam. So Sam, she's a Savor Food Blog Award winner. She blogs over Frosting and Fettuccine. She is really funny. You guys got to watch her Instagram stories. She's just so real, and also just an incredibly gifted photographer and food stylist. And so this is her blog. And so she said, Eva's course is taught so incredibly in depth. I learned things that anyone action tips for growth, and also longer assignments to help you reach your full potential. I like that the modules in each lesson weren't too long or overwhelming, and still had a ton of useful information and learning packed into them. I absolutely love the styling sessions and highly recommend this course to help you grow your food photography career. And there's a ton more testimonials on the site. So if you click on the link and check out the site, you can find out for yourself. But yeah, so those are all people that have taken the course. They're amazing. And I'm just very lucky that I've been able to teach and work with them. And I love befriending folks through the courses too. So if you sign up, I'm so excited about the Facebook group, because that means we're going to be able to stay in touch on a regular basis. So this is only open for 1 week starting today. So don't wait. Please sign up, join. It's going to be such an incredible step in upping your visual photography game. It's so important right now to have imagery that really jumps out and speaks to people. With so many small businesses now on social media, it kind of helps even the playing field too, right? Because back in the day, you had to pay a lot of money to advertise in magazines or on TV to reach people. But now we have free platforms like Instagram and Pinterest where you can be seen by anybody. But the key is to have beautiful images. So I'd love to teach you and help you learn and make beautiful things together. So yeah, let's dive into editing. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you join. And then at the end of this, I'm going to have a Q&A. Okay, so all right, so I have some questions coming up, and let's dive into editing, and then I will answer the questions. So with my editing process, I usually edit all of my images in Adobe Lightroom Classic CC. Like I just said before, it's the best program, and it's so amazing. You can do so many things in it. So the very first thing that I do is I just go into my preset folder and I start scanning through and applying different presets to my image until I find one that I feel like fits really well and looks like a good fit for the photo. And then once I have that, I start doing more minute edits on the image that are particular for that specific shoot. So like tweaking the colors for that particular photo. So for this one, there's asparagus in the shoot. So after I pick the preset, then I'm going to go in and adjust the greens, right? Because there's a lot of green in this photo. And then I'll adjust stuff like white balance or exposure. And then after I do that, then I'm going to go in with really precise edits. And what that means is I start to grab my spot correction tool, which is a little like copy paste tool, and take out any crumbs or disfigurements on the shooting surface. And then I'll also use the brush filter, which allows me to select specific parts of the image and either brighten those up, increase saturation, clarity, all sorts of very specific adjustments. So that's what I'm going to do in my step number 2, is going to be all those little minute precise edits. And then I'm going to use the amazing copy and paste feature in Lightroom that makes it so fast and easy. Once I'm done editing the very first image of the shoot, I copy the edit settings for it. But I always make sure to uncheck the really specific stuff that I did. So like spot removal and the brush tool, that's particular to this exact framing and composition. So I'm not going to check those, but I'll copy all the other edits I made. And then I'm just going to paste it onto all the other photos from that shoot. And then after that, I scroll through each of the other photos and I'll make those tiny adjustments if I feel like it needs it with the brush tool and the spot removal tool. And that's it. And then I just export it. So that's the editing process. Yeah, it's pretty simple. But of course, Lightroom itself is very detailed and huge. You can see there's a lot of little drop-down menus and buttons and all sorts of things. And I go very in depth into how to use the application in my course, but this is just my process when I'm editing. All right, so we have some questions here. So Julie asked, do you have a payment plan option? I don't currently. It's just all in full, but if I were to split it up into two, is that something that you guys would be interested in? Just feel free to reply yes, because that's something that I could definitely put together. Anita says, I already have the standard class and all your presets. Is there an offer to upgrade? Yeah, actually, I can go ahead and send that to you. Anita, if you just want to send me an email, I can go ahead and get you the upgrade option. Okay, awesome. I love this feedback. All right, I'll go ahead and do that. Once this is done, I'll pop in the upgrade option. Brigitte asked, what if I only want 5 and 6 course? I don't have it broken up. But I do think that all of the lessons are really helpful. So I would recommend getting the standard course and just diving in wholeheartedly to everything. Because even if you've been shooting for a while, I think it's, oops, sorry. Let me just share myself now because I know the screen's getting a little crazy looking. Oop, okay, there I am. Because I do think that it's really helpful to get someone else's perspective for how they shoot. So even if you feel like you're a seasoned photographer and you know your lenses pretty well, one thing that I've learned from shooting with a lot of other photographers, especially hosting workshops and things like that, is you always learn something different when you are watching someone else work and learning how people shoot from their perspective. So I think getting the whole course is a really great all-encompassing look at upping your visual game. So Masha asks, is it possible to just get info regarding your file storing system? I'm not doing that separately. It's just the fun bonus as a part of the course, but I definitely recommend signing up. And then Chris, okay. So Chris asked, can we also get an upgrade option for the bundle for those who have already purchased the stop motion course? Totally. So for anybody who has already purchased like the stop motion course, or you got the complete course and you want to do the bundle, or I used to do just individual little courses. If you've already bought a little course and you want to get the whole course, just email me and I can send you a special discount code just for you that takes the price of what you already bought off of it. And then you can grab it. So if you want to email me, I'll just put it in the group, but I'm pretty sure y'all can, I'm just going to put it in here, eva@evacosmosflores.com. All right, so that's my email. So if you guys want to email me about that, I can totally hook you up with that. Just let me know also the email address that you used when you placed your order so I can make sure to look it up and get everything else situated. And then, so Maria asks, is there any feedback from you about our pictures? Yes, definitely. So that's part of what the Facebook group is about, is a continued interaction with you guys as you're going through the course. So when you're going through it, if there are images that you want to get thoughts on, please post them and share them, especially before and after. Sometimes it's really fun to do Lightroom editing before and afters too, once you're starting to get deeper into the program. I love seeing how much that application can change a program. So yeah, I will definitely be there in the group, interacting with you guys, helping you guys in, answering questions. And then Is there any other questions? If you guys have any other questions, Cinemagraph, is it just for Mac and mobile? Yeah, thank you, Meta, for answering. You can do Cinemagraph in Premiere. And then Brigitte asks, will you do any workshops in LA in the near future? No, I'm not. I don't have any plan for now, but maybe next year. I haven't planned my workshops for next year yet. And then Marcella asks, when are you coming to London? I would love to come to London. It's actually one of my favorite cities. But I don't have any more travel planned this year except for 2 workshops actually, in Croatia, and I'm going to be doing one in Ireland. And those will be in the fall. I haven't opened registration for them yet. But if you're on my email list, which you guys are here, so you're on my email list, then you will be the first to know when registration for those opens. No, not Miami or the East Coast. Yeah, just, oh, so Arnie asked, how did you grow your Instagram followers? Well, there's a multi-pronged approach for that, which most important thing to grow your Instagram following is twofold. It's to a platform that if you have beautiful, eye-catching images, people are going to be drawn to you. And then hashtags. I know this sounds like really old school, but hashtags are an amazing, amazing tool for getting people to find you. Instagram is such a huge kind of massive place now, but the benefit of small niche hashtags that have like less than 50,000 uses rather than the big hashtags that have like millions and millions of uses. So think about what it is that you're doing. Like if you are a landscape designer, look up all the really niche specific landscape hashtags and start using those on your photos. And that's really going to help people find you that are a part of your tribe, and that are going to be really interested in your type of feed. Whereas, you know, I'm doing food photography mainly. So if I started using hashtags for like monster trucks, obviously that wouldn't be a good fit for growing my audience, because the people who follow the monster truck hashtags probably don't have a huge interest in like moody food photography. And so Marcella asks, how do you select your hashtags? So the best way to do it, honestly, is if you go into Instagram on your phone there, and you go into the search magnifying glass, the little search window. I think they call it like the Explore tab is its official name. And you just type in under tags, just like the general subject. So if I wanted to do like a cake photo, then I would just type in cake under tags. And then it under the results for cake hashtag, it also gives you suggested results. So like a little bar that has a bunch of other hashtags listed that are similar to the one that you typed in. So that's the easiest way to find other hashtags. And then Marcel asked, how often do you change them? I change them I try to do like every photo. I try to do it like slightly different, but I have saved hashtag clouds, which is something I dive deeper into in the course, but with subjects. So I have like one big batch for baking, one big batch for coffee, one for tea, one for autumn. And then I'll just copy and paste those clouds into my caption. And that's how I kind of mix it up. So not every photo has the exact same one, but there are like similar groupings that I do use depending on the context of the photo. So if it's a photo of tea, I use my tea hashtags. If it's a photo of cookies, I'll use all my cookie hashtags, that kind of thing. Yeah. You guys are so awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I know this took a long time because I cut out, and I am so sorry about my internet connection. That was wild, but I really appreciate you sticking with me through it. And yeah, this has been so much fun, and I would love, love, love to host you in my online course. And like I said, if anyone's already bought stuff that's a part of the package or whatever, just shoot me an email, and I can give you that special code. And yeah, thank you guys. You're the best. And I hope to see you in the Facebook group soon. All right, take care. Bye.